In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Viewers, the Battle of Hunain took place in the 8th year of Hijrah, right after the conquest of Makkah. When Allah Almighty granted victory of Makkah through His Prophet, most of the Arab tribes accepted Islam in obedience. However, the tribes of Banu Hawazin and Banu Thaqif refused. These two tribes were arrogant and proud. In their pride, they said, "By God, Muhammad has so far faced people who are not experts in warfare. Now he will face real warriors." So they began preparing for war and chose Malik ibn Auf, a chief of the Hawazin, as their commander. Once he was accepted as leader, many other tribes joined his army in large numbers. Malik then marched and encamped at a place called Autas, near the valley of Hunain. With them was the famous Arab warrior poet Durayd ibn Sima, who was over 100 years old. Though very old, his war experience was legendary throughout Arabia. He was brought as an advisor. When he was brought to the battlefield, he asked, "Where are we?" They replied, "Autas." He said, "Yes, this is suitable ground for battle. Not too soft, not too hard." Then he asked, "Why do I hear children crying?" They told him the women and children had been brought along so that no one would flee. Durayd objected, "When feet slip, nothing can stop it. Only swords matter in war. If defeat comes, the presence of women and children will bring greater humiliation. Send them back." But Malik ibn Auf rejected his advice, saying, "By God, I will never do that. O Durayd, you are old, and so is your wisdom." Meanwhile, when Prophet Muhammad received news of Hawazin's mobilization, he sent Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abi Hadrad, R.A., as a spy to their camp. He infiltrated, heard their plans, and reported back in detail. The Prophet smiled when told that the Hawazin had brought all their families and wealth and said, "Tomorrow, insha'Allah, all this will become spoils for the Muslims." Then, on 5th Shawwal, 8 the Prophet marched with 12,000 soldiers. 10,000 were the original companions who had conquered Makkah, and 2,000 were young new Muslims from Makkah and surrounding areas. On the way, they passed by a large green tree called Dat Anwat, where pre-Islamic Arabs used to hang weapons and hold fairs. Some new Muslims said, "O Messenger of Allah, make for us a tree like their Dat Anwat." The Prophet said, "Allahu Akbar. By him in whose hand is the life of Muhammad, you have said just as the children of Israel said to Musa, A.S. Make for us a god as they have gods. Surely you will follow the ways of those before you." The Muslim army reached Hunain at night, but Malik ibn Auf had already hidden his forces in the mountain passes and narrow valleys. At dawn, when the Muslims entered the valley, they were suddenly ambushed by a fierce rain of arrows. The enemy archers were expert marksmen. Many Muslims panicked and began to retreat in confusion. Some of those who had just accepted Islam at the conquest of Makkah fled, and others followed them in fear. The army almost collapsed, leaving the Prophet with only about 100 steadfast companions, including Abu Bakr, Umar, Ali, Abbas, Fadl, Rabia ibn Harith, and Abu Sufyan ibn Harith, R.A. The Prophet, firm and unshaken, dismounted and cried out, "I am the Prophet, no lie. I am the son of Abdul Muttalib." He asked Abbas, R.A., to call the Ansar. Abbas shouted, "O Ansar, O people of the tree of Bayat al-Ridwan!" The companions turned back instantly, threw off their armor, and rushed forward. The tide of battle shifted. The Prophet then picked up a handful of dust, threw it towards the enemy, and said, "May their faces be disfigured." By Allah's power, the dust reached their eyes, and they were struck with panic, fleeing in disorder. The Hawazin and Thaqif were decisively defeated. Around 70 of the enemy were killed, and vast spoils fell into Muslim hands. Before the battle, some Muslims had boasted about their great numbers. Allah revealed in the Quran about Hunain, "On the day of Hunain, when your great numbers pleased you, but they availed you nothing, and the earth, vast as it was, became constrained for you. Then you turned back in retreat. Then Allah sent down His tranquility upon His messenger and the believers, and sent down forces. You did not see and punished the disbelievers. That was the reward of the disbelievers." Quran 9:25-26. After Hunain, part of Hawazin's army fled to Autas, led by Durayd's son. The Prophet sent Abu Amir al-Ash'ari, R.A., with a detachment. In battle, Abu Amir was martyred, but his nephew Abu Musa al-Ash'ari Ra, killed Duraid's son and raised the Muslim banner again. Soon, Duraid himself was killed by Rabia ibn Rafi, i.e. Ra. The Muslims gained about 6,000 captives, 24,000 camels, more than 40,000 sheep, and 16,000 silver coins. These were kept at Jirana until distribution. The defeated Hawazin chief Malik ibn Auf and remnants of his people fled to Taif, a fortified city. The Prophet immediately marched there with the army. The siege lasted about 3 weeks. Muslims used manjanik, catapults, and dababa, siege shelters, the first use of such heavy war machines in Islamic history. Despite fierce attempts, the fortress could not be breached. Many Muslims were wounded. 12 were martyred, including those struck by arrows from above. Among the wounded was Abu Sufyan ibn Harb, Ra, whose eye was pierced. He said, "O Messenger of Allah, my eye has gone in Allah's cause." The Prophet offered to pray for its restoration or promised Jannah if he accepted it as lost. Abu Sufyan chose paradise. Eventually, the Prophet said, "I have not been commanded to conquer Taif today." He ordered withdrawal. Though some companions were upset, when they saw the Prophet smile, they realized his wisdom. On returning to Jirana, the spoils of Hunain were distributed. A special portion was given to the Mu'alafat al-Qulub, those whose hearts were to be reconciled to Islam, including chiefs of Quraysh. During this campaign, the Prophet's foster sister Shema, R.A., daughter of Halima Sa'diyah, was among the Hawazin captives. She was brought to the Prophet and reminded him of childhood memories. The Prophet honored her, offered her to stay with him, but she chose to return to her people. He gifted her slaves and servants and sent her back with respect. Later, a delegation of Hawazin came to the Prophet, accepted Islam, and requested the release of their families. He consulted the companions, and all 6,000 captives were freed. Thus, Hunain ended not only in military victory but also